What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Billy Collins.
Matt Doje.
And this is Magician.
And the Jock.
Big guy, who do we have in today, buddy?
Our crack addicts are going to love him.
He's cracking them. He's cracking them up.
That's right. Now, we've got a good buddy of mine, a pillar in the community.
Very much so.
Which we've said that before, but we got Pat McLaughlin, whose name is synonymous in Eastern North Carolina, and we've had on James Cummings before, and I know you and James are real close, but maybe if let the people know kind of what you got going on that the three people in Carter County that don't know who he is.
Probably from down east.
And guys, before he starts, he has an amazing voice. This guy could read the phone book and it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know why. It's something that people have kind of said repetitively lately, and I just never picked it up. Maybe I missed my calling. I did talk to somebody about, hey, maybe I should go into some commercials, and they said, don't do it. There's no money in it. It's a waste of time.
Where are you from originally?
I'm from New York State. I'm born in Binghamton, New York. My dad was an IBMer, and so I've been moved. So we moved down when I was 10 years old to Charlotte, North Carolina. So I grew up in Charlotte. Went to Charlotte Catholic High School, which kind of changed my life. Actually, that was one of my biggest blessings I ever had. Ended up getting into chiropractic. I went to actually played football for 1 year at Mars Hill College, that big traditional Power 5 division. So, anyway, played there for 1 year, and I found out I wasn't good enough to play on Sundays or good enough to play at Mars Hill. So anyway, got involved in chiropractic. We'll tell that story later. Went to chiropractic school up in Iowa, up in Davenport, Iowa. Came back to practice chiropractic in Charlotte for a couple of years in Mint Hill, and then moved here in 1996 to open up the practice.
How did you gravitate towards Morehead City area?
Yeah, great. That's a great point. It's a great story here.
They're like, you know what? We're in Charlotte, but there's this huge
this market that we're missing in Morehead City
in Carter County.
So this is a funny story. This is so. So I was working in Mint Hill, North Carolina. So I was in a group of Mint Hill, Matthews, and Monroe. I was working with a chiropractor named Kurt Frogley, and Frogley Chiropractic Center in Newburgh, North Carolina. So, and we had a group of 4 chiropractors. So it was 4, and then the owners. So there were actually 5 of us. And this was in 1995, and Kurt was asking for a $14,000 raise. Okay, that would have taken him to $50,000 a year. Okay, I mean, chiropractors don't make a lot back in the 90s, and it's a tough field. So anyway, the guy said, listen, he wasn't interested in giving it to him. Kurt was going to continue to make X amount of dollars. Kurt said, man, I got he's got a special needs kid, and he had I'm just newly married, and he said, I got to do something more. So Kurt latched on to a group in Eastern North Carolina that was putting chiropractic practices together east of 95. Like in Wilson or Rocky Mount or Greenville or Jacksonville. They had this group, and what they did was they actually put you in practice, and you worked X amount of years, and then you bought them out.
Almost like a franchise model.
100%.
Yeah.
So Kurt said, man, so Kurt goes to Newburgh, and Kurt's last week in our group, my wife and I got married in 1995. Kurt was the vacation doctor for my practice in Mint Hill, and he worked there. So then he jettisons over to Newburgh, opens up his practice approximately like September. So he calls me up. He goes, Patty, I'm going to tell you, his practice was busier than my Mint Hill practice that I was in for 3.5 years in his first month, by 50%.
Wow.
And so he said, you got to take a look under the hood here. So call up the guy, and these guys put me together. And one of those guys was Randy Shilsky, who was a chiropractor in Jacksonville. And he said, listen, Pat, we got 3 places we want you to look at. We want you to look at Morehead City, Washington, and Sanford. Those are the 3 places we have. So he goes,
easy choice there.
Yeah, right. No kidding. So he says, why don't you come up the first weekend in October, and we'll take a look at this place. I said, okay. So my wife and I go. We'd never even heard of Morehead City. We just got married, just bought a house. So he said, honey, we're going to go take a look at this. I think there's potential here. I mean, we could keep grinding in Charlotte, but all these chiropractors are in Charlotte.
They promised I can make $14,000 more a year.
Yeah, that's right. Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we come up the first weekend in October, and my wife and I have never heard of Morehead City. In Charlotte, you go to Myrtle Beach, and so people were telling us, Morehead City, it's like a poor man's Myrtle Beach. We go to
that's not good.
No, I know.
It's bad PR.
So we come out here, and this is again the first weekend in 1995 of October, and we're here, and the guy picks us up, and we go to, he goes, let's go to the sanitary. So we go to the sanitary, and he goes,
what sanitary is that? Yes, this is the poor man's.
You get a T-shirt at least.
So we didn't, but we get there, and there's only 3 chiropractic centers in Carteret County back in 1995. Okay, in October of 1995. So we go down there, and there's thousands and thousands of people walking around down here. And my wife and I, and these two people that didn't know really what's going on, we're just looking around, like, look at all these people that we could serve here. I mean, look at the masses of people. We were driving around, and I said, listen, Maria, we got to do this. My wife's name is Maria. And I said, we got to sign. I mean, this is a no-brainer. So we signed the dotted line. So that was October, and we just said, let's go. We're burning the ships. We're coming to Morehead City. Got the ocean here. This is going to be cool. So anyway, we come back down in December to look for an apartment or look for a place to stay, rent a house. And we stayed at Atlantic Beach, and there was nobody here. I mean, tumbleweed. And so we start looking around, and like Maria and I get concerned. I mean, we're literally, we're going to Captain's table to have breakfast, and where the hell is everybody? So anyway, we started asking. After about a day of this, absorbing this, like, listen, we were down here in October, and there's tons of people down here, but where is everybody? And they said, well, this place is pretty dead, and then somebody said, listen, when were you down here? And we said, well, we were down here the first weekend in October. And they said, you guys are morons. That's the North Carolina Seafood Festival.
It's one of the biggest festivals in the state.
He goes, those people don't live here. This is what Morehead City's all about. You're crazy. But I do believe this.
I could just imagine, too. If you went to this, like, half the people out there are hunchbacks. He's like, this is a damn gold mine.
Well, I could only imagine, like, because I know your wife, and I could just see her going like this.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, she was.
Move to Morehead, you tell me, huh?
Yeah, and this was, computers just came out that year, right? I mean, literally. I mean, and there was no shopping here. This was not Charlotte, North Carolina, but I believe God will give you signs and do things for you to
100%
make you do those things. And quite honestly, I don't know how we would have done if we came the weekend after October, the first weekend. And we saw how dead it was. Oh yeah, it's this pretty, beautiful area. I'm not so certain we would have made that decision.
Yeah.
And so I really have, looking back, I'm 55 years old, looking back in life, in Andy Stanley did a book called The Principles of the Path, and you can't find your life in forward looking, but you could turn around and say, that dot equaled that dot equaled that dot. And thank God for the Seafood Festival that weekend, because we're not in Morehead City and have all the blessings that have happened to us.
Yeah,
if it wasn't being shown this place at that time. So
yeah.
So the last thing about that story is, so I leave. So $14,000. Kurt Frogley leaves. I leave. So guess what? So Kurt calls the other two associates, and I'm calling the other two associates. So the third associate, he leaves with the same deal and goes to Shelby, North Carolina.
Oh wow.
And the other guy leaves within a year and goes to Jacksonville, North Carolina. The guy lost all four associates over
$14,000.
Jeez.
$1,000 a month, and he lost all of us. So anyway, kind of a wild business story on the back end that was fascinating as well. So
well, it's funny that you talked about it was a blessing that you found this place, because sometimes I'm a big believer in go where they're not. We didn't have many chiropractors at all. I mean, you're actually the first one that I knew in this area, and I pretty much grew up here most of my life. So there's some validity in that.
What's the book about the blue ocean? Whereas Charlotte could have been like a red ocean, where there's just so many. There's a lot of people there, but there's a chiropractor every
corner,
every block. So it's like a lot of sharks in the same water. It's red. And you look for a blue ocean, and I can see that. That's pretty cool, though, man. Talk about a poor man's Mardi Gras coming to the Seafood Festival.
It was. I told that story. I tell that story all the time, and people are just everybody laughs because we just didn't know. They didn't know, and nobody at that time. I mean, knowing this, said, "Hey, this is the Seafood Festival."
It's interesting. We've talked to a lot of people, and especially the more successful people. I don't believe you can have a successful present without having a successful past, right? So it's like, at some point, you come to realize, holy hell, like, life is happening for me, not to me. And if it wasn't that, it would have been something else, right? And so it's essentially you feel led, but it starts with that mindset of like either abundance, success, or whatever. This is the trajectory I'm on, and then just being willing to go. It's like, I don't know why we're going, but I have to go. I got to do it, But let's back up a little bit. So chiropractic care is something, you know, we're very tribal. Humans are tribal, right? You can think of mixed martial arts. People will say, well, jiu-jitsu is better than karate, or boxing. There's all these different disciplines. In medicine, it's the same. And a lot of times the line is drawn between Eastern and Western medicine. We live in the West, so you've got, you know, obviously pharmaceutical stuff and surgeries, and then you've got things like chiropractic care. You have things like, what is it with the needles? Acupuncture. And, you know, I think in a lot of people's minds, they put chiropractic kind of in that, because you're not prescribing medicine. And it's something that as kids we've done forever, like cracking our knuckles. It's like, how could this be beneficial? So maybe let people know, because it's not like a weekend course where you learn a couple things. I mean, how long was the schooling?
Yeah,
when was the first time you fell in love with it?
Yeah, great point. I'll expound on a few of those things. So, first of all, let's just jump right into the education piece. So, it's the practice chiropractic in the state of North Carolina. You need a 4-year degree, which is pre-med. And then, and all pre-med is, you think pre-med's sexy, right? But pre-med is just really 2 years of chemistry, a year of physics, and a year of biology. And that's what and wrap up with a science degree in there. But that's what pre-med is. I mean, there's those 8 classes. So it's pre-med, but a 4-year degree. And then chiropractic can go 3.5 years afterwards. I mean, there's trimester-based schools, there's quarter-based schools. So yes, I mean, it's a very comparable.
Which is like a medical doctor,
correct.
7 years. Yeah.
Yes, correct. Minus the internship that the medical doctor has.
Yep.
I mean, our internship's wrapped up in our last trimester. So, or the last year, but that's kind of weaved into that. So, very comparable on that. Chiropractic, you know, people think chiropractors are back doctors, and really what we are, and this is kind of the educational process. And chiropractic started in 1895, by the way. I'll tell that story in a minute, but so it's been around.
You weren't married at that point.
I was not. I'm not that old.
Wait a minute, I'm only 5 years younger than you.
So, but it's basically a nervous system field that we work through the nervous system, through the spinal, of course, where it goes through. So, the spine is like a breaker box, and you know, vertebrae can shift and be tight and twisted, can actually interfere with the openings where the nerves go through. And that brain cell to body cell connection could be interrupted or compressed or altered, and enough that can cause health problems. So most people will come into our office with musculoskeletal issues, of course, neck pain, back pain, headaches, pain
like
around the
migraines,
arms, legs.
big, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Spine traumas, boating accidents, car accidents, work injuries, these types of things will bring people to chiropractic offices. But once they're there, it's our job to tell them really, hey, by the way, you're here for this, but that could also be beneficial for you.
Right.
So chiropractic care help was started in 1895 by a magnetic healer. And he actually, it was a deaf person that was the first chiropractic adjustment. So this deaf man, his name was Harvey Lillard, and the first the chiropractor that started chiropractic, his name is D.D. Palmer. D.D. Palmer, this guy was a janitor for him, and he said, you know, he lost his hearing about 17 years prior, and explained the best he could to Palmer that, hey, something happened to my spine, and my lost my hearing. So, you know, think about this for a second. And so this guy, Palmer, talks this guy, Lillard, to say, hey, by the way, I think I can maybe be able to help this. Why don't you just lay on your stomach here? And he literally, it was a thoracic adjustment, upper thoracic adjustment, that he delivered to this guy. Huge sound. And what happened is it took away the nerve pressure in the upper mid-back, which has what's called trophic nerves. They're sympathetic nerves that go up into the head area, and the theory is it fed the nerves that affected the blood vessels in the hearing and opened those up, and restored this guy's hearing to not 100%, but enough. That Palmer thought he had a cure for deafness. So he starts getting all these...
He threw that mop away. He's like, we're about to be...
Yeah. So anyway, he goes and gets... So this magnetic healer thinks he's got a cure for deafness. And so he gets all these deaf people, coming into his place, and starts pounding on spines, right? And well, bottom line is, it's a very rare connection between the spine and somebody who lost their hearing. But what he did was, he found that these deaf people are having less aches and pains. They were maybe breathing better, having better digestion. And that's the birth of chiropractic. It's something through the spine affecting the nervous system, affecting the human body in a positive way, shape, or form. And that's the birth of chiropractic healthcare.
That's interesting there.
Yeah, so
That is wild.
That's
But yeah, I
crazy.
mean, you watch. There's a ton. Chiropractic videos do very, very well on YouTube.
Oh, I get sucked into them, especially when
I'll
they
watch
bring out
them.
the big chisel and the hammer.
yeah, there's a lots of different ways to do that. I do find some of that stuff is sensationalized, of course, because people love hear the popping and all that
And
stuff.
the girl's in full makeup with like a thong on. I'm like, you know what? She looks like she had a recovery. Let's watch that one, clear my history.
Yeah. So so it's but good point. I mean, to wrap it up, I mean, yeah, I would say when I got out of chiropractic school in 1991, so I've been practicing, 31 years, right? So anyway, I would say 1 out of 4 medical doctors would recommend chiropractic.
Right.
31 years ago. Today it's 3 out of 4. There's still some old school stigmas, and because we don't prescribe medicine, we're looked at differently. But I'm going to tell you, there's lots of other doctorate programs that are not medical doctors as well, right? But one thing they do have in common is they all prescribe medicine, right? Podiatrists are medical doctors. They prescribe medicine. Vets are not medical doctors. They prescribe medicine.
Psychiatrists. And,
Dentists, right? Optometrists. I mean, so all these fields have medicine in common. Chiropractic is not medicine based. Now there was a very commonality with chiropractic was osteopathy. And osteopaths once upon a time did not prescribe medicine as well. Once they did, they literally came to the other side, and it's difficult to differentiate a DO and an MD today, because DOs do get some spinal manipulation training, but they don't do it. I mean, they basically are blended into the MD world.
Can I just say how pleased I am that he thinks we know what any of these words mean?
I know some of these words.
I know both you guys. You guys are impressive. I know you know
But
this.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, you'll watch the videos just to wrap it up, and a lot of times they'll feel nauseous or they'll feel like a rush because it's taking pressure off a nerve.
Correct.
I know people that I've dealt with terrible migraines, and I know chiropractic and like massage therapy are pretty close. Sometimes you'll see in chiropractic videos they'll massage. They won't just go right into.
What's the most common procedure or area that you work on?
Yeah, it's lower back pain. Low back pain. People think chiropractors are back doctors, right? So we do see a ton of low back conditions. It's mechanical back pain typically. Yeah, but we'll see back pain that emanates into the lower back or into the leg, sciatica, because of the nervous system connection. That's one disconnect we do have with the medical. If I had to stereotype the other side, is they don't think or know that we can maybe help those nerve situations that go down an arm, for example, or a leg. And yes, chiropractic does very well with those cases.
And that's funny because I was deadlifting on Friday, and the whole weekend my lower back was just shot. I don't know if I did a lift wrong, but it shot to my knees, and everything just kind of hurt.
Could have
from
been
there.
something. A lot of times it could be in your hamstring too.
Sure, there's musculature, right?
Yeah.
Like that. The beauty about chiropractic is just really helping the spine become flexible or very flexible. That's and you'll hear about things with chiropractic, right? People will maintain their spine, right? They'll come in proactively. That's a beauty of our field too. Is you can come. There's 3 types of chiropractic care. There's pain management, there's corrective, and then there's maintenance. Okay, and so pain management. Say you came to my office for this, I'd see it 1 to 2 weeks. 3 times a week, maybe daily even, just to get the spine really flexible to get you some pain relief.
There's a specific thing they're trying to get rid of.
Correct,
Yeah.
and we're very specific. Like it's just not rack and stack you. I mean, it's basically I know exactly which levels I'm working with, and we palpate. We just literally let me do this. Let me see your right hand here. Yeah, perfect. So you can see this, right? Normal healthy joints will have a spring in it, and if I misalign your finger on it, I'm just going to twist it and try to move that. It doesn't move as easy as that. So I can literally put my hands on a spine. There's 26 vertebrae, and I can shift them and feel them, and I can tell you by spraying this, the good ones versus the tight ones. And those are the ones that we work on. We'll take x-rays to go ahead and compare and take a look at that. But if you spoke Russian or deaf, and I couldn't really understand language with you, I could feel your spine like that and be able to detect which levels
one, yeah.
I know where to adjust it, which alignment, which direction.
I feel like Pat just grabbed my hand and said, "Billy, you were jacked up. You need to come sit. We got an appointment. We have an opening
See
tomorrow."
you tomorrow morning. So.
It's similar to how a mechanic can look at a car, and because
100%.
nobody knows how to describe what, like, it makes a weird noise, and they're like, just start it, let me listen to it. Oh, that's this.
Correct.
And they can instantly pinpoint it.
Yeah, so it's a great point on that. And so yeah, we would take a case, and we typically would work with somebody aggressively for 2 weeks, and then if that person's interested, my job is to tell people what they need, and then give them what they want. Right? Not everybody wants, I love to go eat at a great restaurant, but I could order the hamburger, or I could order the filet mignon, or I could order lobster. Right?
Yeah.
Some people just want pain management. Some people want to get corrected. And some people want to maintain it and integrate chiropractic for a lifestyle. And I've seen it all. I've seen
That's a
people
good point.
once
That's a
a
good way
week
to look at it. Yeah.
for 26 years in that practice. I've seen people that dedicated to getting their spine and nervous system checked, because when their nervous system is in harmony, when that brain cell, the body cell, is working properly, they get sick less often. They digest food better. They breathe easier. They sleep better. They're more mobile. We take x-rays of their spine every couple of years, and there's less arthritis in those spines versus people that don't otherwise get chiropractic care. So there's lots of different benefits that people have with that. So it's pretty cool.
We talked about the schooling, like you getting into it and where you went to school, but as a kid, did you just wake up and go, I want to adjust bones?
Great question. He mentioned that. I'm glad you brought that up. So
Did we already discuss that?
no.
Yeah.
So I had migraine headaches when I was 13 years old. I had a kind of a weird slip and fall, and my neck got sprained, and I started getting migraines very quickly right after that. I was 13 years of age, and if you have a real powerful migraine, it literally mimics a stroke almost, like a mini stroke.
I've had guys seen people go blind, like
Yes.
temporarily.
I've lost my vision, unable to communicate. I was in the hospital 2 different occasions. My parents didn't know what was going on. It's scary. This is before MRI, so I had CAT scans of the head, making sure I didn't have a brain tumor, right? I was on CoreGuard, which is a beta blocker, for 4 years during high school, during college, and it was brutal to be on medicine every single day of your life for migraines. And migraines would hit me about every 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd miss school. I missed a few baseball games at Charlotte Catholic. It really affected my lifestyle. And I had a friend of mine whose dad worked for, or I was doing some computer work way back when with Keith Clinic, which is in Charlotte, one of the biggest chiropractic clinics in Southeast United States. And I was at an impressionable time in my life right after my first year of Mars Hill. And this guy said, "You need to look at this." And I was more interested in looking at it for my health, right, helping the migraines. And he goes, "I think you'll be good at it. I think you would be good at it. You got good eye-hand coordination, good with your hands. I think you'd be presentable. You're smart enough, I think, to get through the program." So I went and met with this guy. And I met with him. His hours were 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So I went to 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday to meet with this guy about chiropractic. And so the rest is history. I just liked what this guy talked about. And then I ended up getting chiropractic care.
I was about to say, you were patient zero.
And then
it worked for you.
And correct. And the back end, I get maybe a migraine a year now. It's very minimal. I'm on no meds for that. And
That's incredible. It's just, and for me, like the body's just, I guess because I work out, and I like to push my body and see the way it moves. So it's kind of interesting to get a chiropractor's look on why he got into it.
Correct.
Just the way to manipulate different pain situations.
Yeah, so I would say 2 things, Billy, on that. One is, I was curious enough to be, and I was at an impressionable point in my life. And the second part is, once I got it, it worked for me. And so that blend, I'm just blessed. I mean, it was just really a godsend, God wink.
Perfect storm.
It was just, it just worked out, and I was called to do this. I really felt that way, and was blessed, and had a great direction. My first job there, and just to go over how blessed I am on this is, it's Thanksgiving week, right? So I really believe this. It's cool to talk about my blessings. Is I worked for the best chiropractor in the state of North Carolina. His name was Joe Saragusa. Now, he should have gave that guy $14,000 more. But, bottom line,
Probably wasn't the smartest businessman, but he's a damn good chiropractor.
He was a great businessman. It was just one of those things. But bottom line, he was I learned everything from this guy. He was unreal. And then to have the opportunity to work for Randy Shulsky and him putting me in practice out here, and his father-in-law, who is deceased now, Roger Roth. Those guys helped me get started here, and those were really great mentors in kind of the business of chiropractic. So I got learned the field, and then I learned the business, because in essence, if the business of chiropractic or the business of anything doesn't survive, the chiropractor doesn't survive, and then your impact on others. So I mean, there's two different animals to that, and so I literally I could say in my situation, and even Kurt Frogley in Newburgh, that we literally were blessed to have really best of both worlds, to have. And I'll say 3 worlds. I think Palmer College of Chiropractic in Iowa is the best chiropractic school you go to. I think we learned from the best guy in the state, and then had really good mentorships as far as how to run a practice. So
that's awesome.
And then wrap it up in a bow. And
We've talked about the history of chiropractic care, the validity of it, all of that good stuff. What I'm really curious in, and that's the trick that you mentioned, the people early on that were finding some success. It's like, okay, how do we turn this into a business? How do we charge? How do we get residual income, repeat customers? How do we market it? All of that good stuff. And also, I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about how you've set your practice up to where you can then look into other entrepreneurial areas while at the same time keeping your practice going, because you still are owning the practice. When we've had James Cummings on, who had a similar kind of backstory, but he actually sold his practice, and now focusing full time on that, and you're a partner with James. So maybe talk about that. When was the first time you realized, holy hell, I got a legit business here? Like you had a skill, you had an ability to help people, but now it's this is sustainable.
sure, when I was in Mint Hill, North Carolina, I was working for this other gentleman. His systems worked. It was smaller scale. And I read the book The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and system. So he had great chiropractic systems, but you and I were talking about off camera here about we were a small fish in a big pond, and there was just more opportunity out here in Carteret County and other smaller counties east of 95 in eastern North Carolina, where we could serve. There wasn't a lot of chiropractors out here per location, so to speak. So I would say after the first year, maybe check that. I would say sooner than that. 10th week in practice, where literally Shilsky came up from Jacksonville and said, "What are you doing?" Because things were
booming.
They were, and I think my wife and I were frightened. We were scared. She's not like Morehead City first year. I mean, she was a charlatan, like the big city.
You said charlatan or a charlatan?
Charlatan.
Okay. All right. We're going to talk about that.
And she went kicking and screaming and really wanted me to go back. And
bored out of her mind.
Yeah, so we were going to open up a practice in exit 25 or 28 near Mooresville. And we had it down. And on the weekends, we would plan our Charlotte return, really, that first year.
Really?
And so I said, listen, we're going to give this a year. We're going all in. And if you're unhappy after, 1 year, then we'll return. And, it was a lot of, literally, I'm not kidding you, 18-hour days at times. I mean, people say that, but it really was. And
because it was just you at this point,
it was,
right?
me and 2 staff members. And and so anyway, we just the same thing you've probably heard on this show many a time. It was just a lot of hard work and out in the community and just grind and just give great service, and it all kind of meshed up, and the machine worked here. So and people liked the type of chiropractic brand we were providing, and they were telling others. And
I was going to say, referrals, it's got to be huge with that.
they are. We did some advertising. None of the chiropractors were advertising back then, and we were. And
I was getting ready to say you were probably the master of marketing when it comes to the medical side.
Come on down.
I feel like I could be in a bathroom stall, shut the door, I'm like, hey, there's Pat looking at me.
Hey, he's got a urinal cake. This is weird.
I will tell you, there's a quick funny story on this.
Yeah.
So call us today, see us today was just a stupid little thing I created with that. People have used that coin phrase, but we do want to see people the same day we can, or as fast as we possibly can. I mean, we're not a chiropractic practice where you're going to go ahead and try to call us and it's going to be 1 or 2 weeks. If that happens, please contact me personally. We got a problem, right? So, but a funny thing, we did do some cable television advertising, and we were pretty consistent with that in the 2000s. And I got two quick stories here. I'll be quick on this. So this one was, I got a Super Bowl story to tell, and then this one. So we were consistently doing X amount of money per month in our cable television. Well, I'm going to take us back to the recession. So 2007, 2008 hits, and we were still doing the same amount of television advertising, but everybody pulled back in 2008 on the recession. And 2009, nobody was advertising on television, but we still were. Well, I had to fill all these spots. I would come home for lunch, I kid you not, and I would see my commercial on TV 3 or 4 times in an hour. And people were thinking I was like, during the recession, I was making like millions of dollars in the chiropractic field, which, no, I wasn't, unfortunately.
It's like, I forgot those commercials were still running.
I literally called my agent up. I called my agent up and said, listen, I think we need to throttle back a little bit. I think I'm being almost, you can advertise.
I'm oversaturating the market.
I mean, you guys have seen the same thing on TV. I mean, does everybody need a bathroom remodel right now? I mean, seriously. I mean, how many commercials have you seen right now? But we almost got to that point. So yeah, we were really, really intense. So in the 1900s, 1998, we partnered up with Frogley, Shilsky, and a guy named Jim Sylvia in Kinston, and we put together what's called the East Carolina Chiropractic Alliance. And the 4 of us kind of pooled money together, and we were on network television on ABC.
Smart.
For every month, with the caveat that if we spent X amount. I can tell you what we spent. Each one of us put $1,000 a month in. It was $4,000 a month. And if we spent $48,000 for the year, they would give us one of their 4 local commercials for the Super Bowl.
Oh wow!
Because when the Super Bowl comes on, each television station only had like a handful of commercials that they could put like the local people on there.
It'd be like a Doritos commercial. Then it's like, come on down to Jim Bob's.
Yes, correct.
Crash for Clunkers. Yeah.
So we said, let's do it. Let's go for it. And so we did this thing, and it was again called the East Carolina Chiropractic Alliance. We did some group advertising, and it's something we probably need to do again, quite honestly, but. We got on this. We literally were on the 3rd quarter of the Super Bowl. So I'd go out and do some speaking, go to schools and talk chiropractic or groups. And one of the schools I went to talk about chiropractic in the school, these kids thought I was like had money bags because they just assumed my chiropractic school
was because you were on the Super Bowl
was in Los Angeles, in Houston, Texas,
this
Chicago, New York City.
All they heard was Alliance. They didn't hear East Carolina. They heard Alliance.
But they just thought that commercial, which is only local, and the MDA here was just here. It wasn't in Charlotte or Raleigh or New York City or Houston. It was just here.
Awesome.
But kids and the people that watch it think that.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, we have these Pepsi, where Michael Jackson and Pepsi, and then all these funny Dorito commercials and GoDaddy commercials, and then McLaughlin, the East Carolina Chiropractic Alliance. Wow, these guys are famous. They're nationally renowned, but it had nothing to do with it.
That is
nothing like watching Danica Patrick and then Pat McLaughlin right after.
We've talked about that. It's like there's an epidemic for business people. So we've heard of the obesity epidemic, but for businesses, it's the obscurity epidemic, right? Like. The hardest part, you got to go through all the schooling, you got to be good at it, and then also get the word out that you actually do it, right? A lot of times, I always ask people, do you think Dr. Phil is the best psychologist in the world? They're like, no, but he's he's got name recognition, right? He doesn't have a prospecting problem. And the most successful guys, every goal of a business is to become referral based. That's the best form of marketing there is. But in those early times, especially through 07, 08, where everybody's contracting, you're like, you probably were getting a little bit more bang for your buck at the time, and you just moved into a space. If anything, you stayed top of mind. Doesn't mean people were coming in, but you didn't disappear and then show back up and have to restart all over again. So that's pretty smart.
Did you deliberately just keep pushing, or was it in the back of your mind to pull back, or was it just like, hey, we're good, we can just keep doing what we're doing?
Back when those
recession,
yeah. So what happened? I think it just had a contract, Billy, that I had to go and honor.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I think it was like $1,000 a month or something like that for 12 months, and I was like in the middle of it. So.
Damn it, Pat! I was waiting for some mind blowing Yes, I saw that writing on the wall.
But in retrospect, it was some of the best things I ever did. Because,
Well, you talked about how God gives us, paths and stuff. So,
but I mean, it is true. I did call up. I said, "Listen, can I spread this out a little bit?" Because I mean, I would literally come home and I would. Purposely, I'd watch the television because I want to see if I could catch it, and so I was probably having it on in the morning, and if I came home for lunch, and then in the evening, and I'm not kidding, I would see it 4 to 10 times a day.
You turn it into a drinking game, take a shot every time you
No kidding.
Like lives are ruined.
I'd be on the floor, but it was that's a true story.
The chiropractic is booming, and then you had an itch or whatever. You and James Cummings came together and went into another type of franchise, which was Great Clips.
Correct.
I remember playing golf with James one time. He had a Great Clips hat on, and I'm like, "Oh, do you like Great Clips? Like, you a big fan of Great
I'm a big fan.
Clips? Like, you a big fan?" He's like, "No, I own, I think at the time like 25 of them or something." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So he's just like a loyal patron, But
he loves his haircut.
Yeah. But James said he had no experience in cutting hair. I'm assuming you didn't have any time while you're doing your schooling for chiropractic, but he said something pretty smart where he's like, the good thing about that is if there's a problem, I had to use my mind, right? I couldn't just put on an apron and get back there. A lot of people who like to cook think, oh, I'll open a Subway. I love to cook. This is a perfect mix. You guys didn't do that. So how did you guys settle on Great Clips, and what has that been like as opposed to starting your chiropractic from scratch?
Sure. I don't know if did he tell you his Great Clip story, how we got into it at all? Do you recall it take me a minute to tell it, and I'll do that real quick. But he and I were looking at doing some kind of just a side business. I mean, I think we both, I'm not afraid to say this, I was burning a little bit back in 2007, 2008, 2009. I mean, it just physically and mentally in the chiropractic world.
It happens.
It does.
Happens in every profession.
And so looking for maybe just a side business.
More passive.
And my wife was willing to help out with that piece of it as well. We have 4 kids. They're getting old enough that we could make this play a little bit. So James and I looked at a variety of business, and really why Cummings, he and I were just really good friends, liked to read together, had shared a lot of common values, and just made a decision, hey, let's try this together, as business partners.
That mastermind concept. Yeah.
So, and he was, full-fledged with his law practice, him and Sydney were, and we just felt like the capacity, we could do this together. So we looked at a variety of things. We looked at importing wood, just as a ground floor thing, got involved. We looked at a Dunkin' Donuts in Jacksonville. They were selling 2 of them. We actually met with a business broker to look at those. We looked at Moe's Southwest Grill, and Moe's Southwest Grill, we went pretty far to putting it in the same location where
Welcome to Moe's.
Welcome to Moe's. Yeah.
So we were thinking about doing that, and we probably were on this journey for about 1 year to 2 years as far as looking at different models. And so it's a great story. James ends up going to Disney World with his kids and maybe his mother, and they left out of Wilmington. So Wilmington had a direct flight to Orlando at the time. So right when he gets the car to go, Moe's Southwest Grill calls James and says, we're out. Morehead City's not big enough for us.
Right.
We're not coming. And still, there's been never a Moe's Southwest Grill here since. So we're out. We're not coming there. So, we just thought this was our farthest down the, to try something, because we were antsy. We don't want to try the wrong thing. We wanted to, we were ready to put some action on this.
Yeah.
So he gets to the airport, parks his car, gets to the airport, and he buys an Entrepreneur magazine. And in the Entrepreneur magazine, it talked about Great Clips. You could keep your regular job, do this on the side, blah 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 blah. So he's intrigued reading about it on the plane trip. Comes back to Wilmington. They fly back after the trip, and he says, Sydney, go stay with the kids to go get the bags. I'm going to go get the car. So he goes and gets the car in the parking lot, and the car next to his car is a
Great Clips
wrapped car. And he goes, damn.
It was like a calling.
There's the calling, there's the blessing, there's the sign.
Here's your sign. Yeah.
And so he comes back, and he goes, listen, I need you to meet me at Outback Steakhouse, 7 p.m., on a Monday. I can tell you where I was sitting. So I go, he goes, I got it. This is what we're going to do. Goes through the spiel. He goes, we're going into Great Clips. And my answer, guys, was, what the? Fill in the blank. Are you kidding me? And he goes, not. We're doing this. So we did all the preliminary stuff. And next thing you know, the rest is history. So we opened up our first salon in Governor Station 14 years ago on Valentine's Day coming up. So in 2009.
Wow.
And we were stupid enough that we ordered 3 of these in a row. And it was really another big blessing, if I can use that word, in the fact that we opened one in Cape Carteret in May and then Havelock in August. If we didn't do those 3, there's no way he and I would be in business today.
The Morehead store took a little bit longer to get going, or?
Correct. We sucked at it the first couple of years. It was brutal. I mean, we lost a lot of money.
It was decent clips.
Yeah, not even at times. And we just didn't know what the heck we were doing. And it was it was real difficult. And it was tough times.
I would love to have been at the Outback. I just see James like this, sitting back.
Eating that brown mystery bread, just I got it, dude.
And they're tearing it down.
I was going to say.
Hopefully that's not a sign. Yeah, but it was it was cool, so it was frightening. But what we did was, just to take a little step further, is we had mentors in Wilmington, and I told James, I said, James, I think that this is the quantum leap. I think they were I think in the 70s, and they didn't have anybody that really passed the business down to. I said, let's go ask them if they have an exit strategy. We want to be their exit strategy. As I told them, I could tell you, we were sitting in my house at Camp Morehead at the time downstairs. I said, I'm going down there, and I'm going to go start this ball rolling. I said, I just have a feeling, a calling that they, And so I went down there and met with them, and came back, and I said, I think they might listen. So we both went down there, and these guys said that they were thinking about offering it to somebody else. So okay, no, that didn't work. They had 12 salons at the time. And I'll be damned, in 2012, they called us. They had a death in the family, and they said, listen, we've pondered this, we're ready to exit the system, and we've chosen you guys to go ahead and take our Wilmington. So we went from 3 salons to 15 salons, and this was in 2012. We just had our 10th year anniversary, September 1st, so that was... So then it got real, and then we had to really roll up our sleeves here and really get serious about this thing. Not that we weren't before, but it was.
Well, now it becomes like reality. Sometimes you see
Bigger
stuff and it's
scale,
like, oh, and now it's like Matt said, big scale, and it's like reality. But what's intriguing to me is like you kind of like could predetermine that you saw that, hey, these guys are getting older, and we want to grow this. But so that's pretty cool, just in that aspect of business, is to branch out. Push yourself, push the variety, see where you need to go. So
and I called him. I called that guy. Interesting, we bought him from their last names were the Barbers, of all things.
Perfect.
And I called him on September 1st and thanked him for a decade of trusting us, because really, he had a couple different people that were going to. They were contemplating doing this with, and it changed our life really.
And you run a business. You don't want to just you want the business to continue to thrive, and they put all that blood, sweat, and tears. So it's
right.
Most guys would love to have their son inherit it, and they grew up in it, but that's not always the case. But
it's almost like a child when you start. You put all this resources into a business and you grow it, and it becomes part of you, and you spend pretty much just the amount of time with the business and your own family. So
great point. My brother works for Chick-fil-A. He's in the corporate, and Chick-fil-A talks about being good stewards of the business, right? And you want to be a good steward to the business when you are selling one, right? It's a great point. You want to that baton handoff has got to be smooth, and you want to make sure it's left in good hands, because there's legacy with it.
That's interesting. So, and then fast forward today, you guys have close to 50,
so a couple things. So we ended up buying. We were asked by another gentleman to jump in a partnership in Nashville, Tennessee, and this was in 2017. And so there was 26 salons that we bought into. So I was 30%. James was 30%. This guy was 30%. And then the existing owner retained 10%. So it's complicated. It was.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we had 2 kids still at home at the time. We moved to Nashville, Tennessee in May of 17, and just to help support that whole process. But at one time we had as many as 50 salons. I moved back in 2020. I was bought out by the original partner. James is still involved in that business in Nashville, but I am no longer. I got bought out in 2020, which is an interesting story. But anyway, so I'm just involved in the Eastern North Carolina salons at this point.
Gotcha.
Which is fine. It's worked out, and I'm happy about that.
How did you like living in Nashville compared to Morehead?
That's a great question here. It's like Charlotte, but Nashville is what they call a 365 city. There's something to do in Nashville. I think there's only a handful of 365 cities in America, and Nashville's one of them. Nashville's a great town. It's got a blend of people from Midwest people and Southern people. I call it Southern Midwest people. So it's just a great town. We had a great time. There's some things about the big city that we forgot we didn't like, i.e. traffic.
Yeah.
It's tough to find community in a big city.
Right.
So we missed some things. It was a good perspective check for Maria and I and the kids. We grew quite a bit as a family and as individuals, and have some great friends in Nashville still today. I mean, Nashville, Tennessee is a tremendous place if you haven't visited it. I mean, it's an awesome place.
Young Jock was just there over the weekend for his 30th birthday.
Yeah, it's and we've had some incredible memories, but we're happy to be back. And it was a great blessing in our life. And sometimes you got to put yourself through the blender sometimes.
Now, did the wife throw a fit when you're like, we're moving back to Morehead? She said, no!
She wanted to come back to Morehead. I'll tell you what I've been married for 27 years, and the thing I appreciate about my wife that I can honestly say is she's courageous. And her parents were deceased when she was young, and that maybe part of it. Quite
Can
honestly,
have to grow up quickly.
Yeah, and she didn't have that. We don't have the strong family bond. She got a brother and sister, but they weren't pulling factors. You know what I'm saying? Like if the parents were living in Charlotte, maybe that would have been a different story. But man, she has pivoted with me on these things, and if it wasn't for her, there's no way I would have this circuitous life I had.
Right.
If it wasn't for Maria, I mean, and she has guts and a lot of courage. Because think about this. I had a senior in high school, had a freshman in high school. Oh, let's go to Nashville. That probably wasn't the smartest thing for our kids, quite honestly, retrospectively. I mean, I'm humble enough to say that, I wish
you just ruined their high school. It's fine.
My senior, we ended up having to ship her back. And so she did senior year, so we sacrificed that year. It was very difficult for us. I mean, you have a kid and you can't experience their senior year. We miss prom and a lot of soccer games.
I know that feeling because my dad took another region for Walmart when my senior year, and he was like, yeah, we're moving to, I think it was Richlands they moved to. I was like, yeah, I'm not moving. It's my senior year. It's like, I don't want to move. So I got to stay with my grandparents. So I can relate with her.
Yeah. And now, so you've gone through a couple different iterations, right? You got your chiropractic, found out you're good at it, found out you could start a practice that actually was profitable enough, and I guess self-sufficient enough for you to be able to look to adding more franchises. And then now the next iteration in your life is kind of almost like a pay it forward type deal. You've gained a ton of wisdom over that time. And what I want to talk about too is what you're working on now from almost more like a personal development standpoint called Life Alignment, which makes a lot of sense being a chiropractor. You got great handwriting, by the way, in these.
I didn't do that. Actually, Coastal Press did that. So
you're working on a book right now, and hopefully you've mentioned possibly doing some courses, teaching some classes and stuff. You have a handful of kids too, so you've been doing personal development with them too. So maybe talk about the book you're working on and how you see the future.
Sure. I've got 4 children. They're 20, 22, 24, 26. I got 2 girls, 2 boys, and I've been around them and their friends, them for life, but all their friends, and what I've seen is from them, their friends and them is some kind of lostness, if I could use that word.
Kind of drifting.
Yeah. And it's like, hey, where's my direction in life? Where am I going? What am I, what direction do we need to go in? I do a lot of reading, and I read a book called Designing Your Life from a guy named Evans and Burnett. They're from Stanford. They're Stanford professors, and people pay $75,000 or more to go to Stanford, and they have all these kids, and what they are, they're engineer teachers, and so they teach engineering. And then they said, "Listen, we're tired of seeing these Stanford kids come in lost." He goes, "We got to go ahead and have a life design class." So they created this life design class called Designing Your Life. It's the #1 class taught at Stanford. They wrote a book on it, subsequent book called Designing Your Work Life. Excellent stuff. I've actually copycatted a couple things on there, but it's for Stanford students. So basically,
For nerds is what you're saying.
my system's a little bit unique in the fact that it's dumbed down a little bit. And it's kind of a blend from the EOS system and the entrepreneur operating system or traction that a lot of businesses run. I was at the Traction conference, the national conference a couple years ago, and as I sat there and I said, "Man, this is fascinating stuff for businesses. There's a lot of good business architecture, accountability charts, level 10 meetings, rocks, scorecards. But do we really have anything like this for the individual?" So I kind of a calling, an epiphany kind of came to me. And really what I called it, the EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, was what I'm calling the IONS, which I'm calling the Individual Operating Nurturing System. And the reason I say it's IONS is every word ends in ION. Okay. So we take it from the foundation, which is the fundamental foundation of kind of what all of us live for, right? All the fundamentals of why we're alive, right? Everybody has a calling, and it goes into passion, what I call the purposeful passion about why we're here. And then it goes into what I call the meaningful mission, what our core values are, okay? And then we have to develop a vast vision, right? What are our goals? And those are the pretty simple things, right? Passion, your core values, mission, set your goals, vision. But then it takes that big chasm is action. Right, taking action on that. A lot of people talk about it, but do they really act on it? And then once you get action, great, congratulations. But now you get into a war, which I call the patient, persistent, persevering progression. And that's all the trial and failures that you go up and down with. And once you accomplish that, then you get to what I call joyful jubilation, which is really where your soul comes out. I think stacking those things up, your passion, your mission, your vision, your action, your progression into jubilation, is what I call this life alignment. And if you can connect those dots, I think you really have a fulfilled life if you're living through that type of
And
stuff.
that's something that is specific enough, but it's broad enough where you can apply it to being a parent. You can apply it being an entrepreneur, an
100%.
athlete. What is my passion in parenting? And, yeah.
What I like about it is I think we put so much pressure on kids nowadays. Like, okay, now you're 16, you sit with a guidance counselor. What do you want to do with your life?
Correct.
Oh, shit, I'm 50. I have no idea what I'm going to do the rest of my life. It's always changes. So these seem like core values that can just translate to, hey, I'm going to switch, just like you did. You went with the chiropractor, then you switched and tried something brand new, and you could implement those procedures into that.
Great point, Billy. And I'm going to say this: each one of these steps, you could say, there's exercises associated with it. That's why I'm building a curriculum on top of this. So, like, for example, the passion, right? There's lots of, I find passion connects with strengths, right? If you could follow your strengths or go after your strengths, I think you can follow your passion. So stuff like strength finders, right? I mean, it's $50 you can get. The Vedic personality test, you're a guide, you're a leader, this type of stuff. Myers-Briggs test, for example, the personality test, right? If you're amiable or expressive or you're driver or analytical, these types of things. Which hue is you? There's a test called DISC, right? Dominant and all that stuff. So really blend this, take as many or all of that stuff, and I think you can find really what your strengths are at that point, and that can help lead you to your passion. And one of the things I'm talking about on passion is really three things. Create a passionate statement, okay? A dominant thought, and then what I call a life word. A life word is from John Gordon. So, like, my life word is coach. I like to coach people, coach businesses, coach my kids. So once those things are identified, you've kind of identified what your passion is. The mission piece is core values, personal core values, and I think that's critical. Businesses have core values, but do people? And what I found, like, my core values are 6 of them, right? It's go, grow, give, live, love, learn, okay? And so, real quick on those, go. I like to go for it in life, okay? I like to give back, and I like to grow. I love to live. love to learn, and I love to love. Okay? And so what I'm doing is I'm finding I'm using that as a colander. Like when I'm meeting people, I'm washing my friends through those colanders. And if those people are not catching it, if I'm not catching that, I may have to move on to some people because they're not aligned with my personal core values.
Right.
If I'm thinking about a business decision, am I going to live with this decision? Am I going for it? Am I growing? Am I living? So I'm kind of using those core values personally to go ahead and blend all my life decisions through those things. Fast vision is pretty easy. It's just goal setting, right? But there's lots of different things with that. And then the action is really an accountability, taking those yearly goals and dividing them into 90-day rocks, what I call seasonal steps. Progression is a scorecard, a personal scorecard, very similar to EOS. And then jubilation is how do you celebrate it, and how do you give back, and how do you reward yourself and reward others for it. So pretty simple stuff. It's nothing rocket science. It's things that people have talked about. It's just kind of
Well, you cleaned it up.
It's a different blend.
It's like you cleaned it up, put it in a nice package for.
Correct. It's just
easy
it's
to
very compressed.
digest.
Yeah, it's compressed learning. That's all it is. It's just a package difference. It's like a margarita recipe. This is my margarita recipe on life.
And what I've noticed doing this show is like I get a lot of clarity helping people get clarity. You know, it's like sometimes you need someone else to pour into you that you can see stuff, and
100%.
especially someone who's as accomplished as you. I always tell people, like, don't take advice from people that you wouldn't gladly trade places with, you know. And there's a lot of 30-year-old life coaches out there.
But that's what I was going to say. You know, the people, 30-year-old life coaches that have never actually owned a business.
It's a lot of theory versus practice.
Right.
You know, I would say one of your superpowers is the ability to take action. That's what keeps people on the sidelines. Like we do constantly, we're planning to plan and planning to plan and planning to plan. And you're just like, hey, let's go. That's where we're going to learn is out there. And just being a parent now myself, like I've realized like a lot of my job is not to screw my kid up with my own self-limiting beliefs, you know, because psychologists have job security because of that. And then another thing you mentioned remind me of Brendan Burchard, who said, at the end of our life, we're going to ask 3 questions. Did I live? Did I love? Did I matter? And I'm like, man, that hits hard.
That's strong. Yeah.
Because, you know, I grew up in the church. You read about like the boldness of Paul and these guys that they were willing to die for this. And you're like, man, that's so awesome. But you're like, damn, I wish I could find something I'd be willing to die for. You know, I think we all have that, especially as men, that Alexander the Great DNA to want to get out and just take up space, conquer, you know, grow. But it's, what do I do? You know, there's the shiny object syndrome and you know, but yeah, it does start within. So I could see this being really, really good.
Yeah, this by looking at this, because I was setting up, so I didn't get to talk to you as much about this as Matt did. So, but yeah, this is I love this stuff.
Yeah, if you turn it over, it's just kind of, and it's not correct yet, but it basically just talks about how everything goes in order, so to speak. So I think you got to set your passion first, and then eventually get your mission. Then you set your goals, and then as Matt just said there, right? Taking that, I think it's a huge quantum leap, because a lot of people say, "Well, these are my dreams," but then taking action on that, it is, and I think action gets into the progression, which is try, fail, learn, 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 until you succeed. Try, succeed, and that's a Jack Canfield principle right there. I listened to Brendan Burchard. That's right. On the Ed Milet show, by the way, to your audience.
I love Ed Milet.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Ed Milet.
So Milet had Burchard on there.
Yeah.
You probably listened to his episode.
Of course.
And he talked about that one as well. I'm getting to see Milet in February in Vegas.
Are you going to the
chiropractic convention?
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if because he's with Andy Ferellis as well. He does the starts with an A, and I'd butcher it, so I'm not going to even try it. But they did do a big thing for business owners and entrepreneurs and wannabe entrepreneurs, and I'm like, I have to go to that one year.
Interesting question that I got asked, or I heard Dan Sullivan. I love Dan Sullivan. He and I are on the same wavelength, but as an entrepreneur, like you have to be, especially as a coach, like who do you want to be a hero for?
Who do I want to be a hero for?
Yeah.
Really, I mean, just in my audience is my 4 kids, and then the secondary is if I can help young adults, 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, or any adults, I should say, fast forward some thought processes that could help assist them or nudge them towards their true calling. I think that'd be cool, and I've done that a little bit already in my life, and it's intoxicating, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and I don't know if there's any legs to this down the road. I really don't. I'm going to do it. I've got half.
Oh my gosh, I can see yeah. I see a stage with you walking on it, discussing this, and having other people come in and help you, send the message.
Yeah, it's simple. I just simplified
Yeah.
a life concept.
100%.
And so it's so UNC Chapel Hill, for example, I've taught there. I was there last Thursday, 2 Thursdays ago, and the third time I've taught at their entrepreneur program. Bernard Bell is the chair, and so he and I are working right now to try to. In fall of 2023 is our goal. It's just a 1-hour program. I'd have to drive to Chapel Hill 1 day a week and come back, and it's no big deal. But and it's 18 weeks, so it's 1 hour a week, and we're trying to have this kind of be the almost like you're designing your life in Stanford type class, but life alignment or some type of iteration of that. But anyway, that's kind of be cool to have those.
And that's a treat. And like you're still kind of new in that you've been. I know you're just itching to get out and like try this material out and see what people resonate with. That's the hardest part with business, because it's like, what's your niche? It's like, well, I'm not real sure. You got to get out there, and we've talked to people. You're best positioned as an influencer to influence you 5 or 10 years ago, like that version of you, right? Like the before picture of who wants to aspire to be like what you are right now.
Envisioning.
And that has given me a lot of clarity on, because if you have a servant's heart, you want to help everybody, but if you can't be everything to everybody. And the reality is you can't be anything to everybody, but your superpower of taking action will mean you're not going to be sitting in your house nonstop just like, what if I got this? And you'll come up with 5,000 different programs, and you're like, I just got to get out. Let's just minimum viable product, get it out there. That kind of ready, fire, aim approach. And yeah, I could see it doing extremely well.
And on top of this, I mean, this could turn into evergreen product where people are buying information right and left, and it has legs. So it's going to be, once you place it in the process of going, it's going to be easy just to watch it grow. Yeah, because stuff like this, I mean. Well,
we should, if you're open, I'd love to do a show just dedicated on this, because people hear words like passion or vision and stuff, and
that would be,
and words like success, and it's pretty abstract. It's like it, but it's, how are they using that word? So I think it would be cool. I love language to like dive into. Okay, what were you thinking when you said mission? What is that versus? Are we talking about like a mission from the army, or are we talking about a personal mission?
Sure.
And maybe like you could use this as some guinea pig to like flesh out some of the stuff while you're doing it. I think that would be great. I mean, I'd get a lot out of it.
I would too.
Selfishly, but we appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely, man.
Did you have a good time?
Oh, it was great. Thanks for having me.
I
know James was on this. I watched him in action with.
Well, we actually told James, like, well, we gotta get Pat on here.
Yeah.
We have a list of people, and like I told you before we turn on the cameras, is like we want to get those people that help other people. You've given back to the community so much over the years being here, and I mean, I've seen it firsthand because we go to the same church and everything. So, but I think what you're going to do now is going to even give back to a broader base of people instead of just localized. So I applaud you for that.
What's that? There's a book, Halftime, I think it's called by Bob Buford, where he says you get lost in success and you get found in purpose. And it's like, I'm passionate about passionate people, and this guy's just oozing with oozing. Let's freaking run.
You guys get me pumped up every time we have James or Dave Free on, or
just guys that are.
And we talk to different people that. Different backgrounds of not just business, but for some reason the business people just get me.
Man. But people, I love people putting
kiss babies and shake hands,
putting a dent in the universe, man. That's the goal. It's awesome, brother.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Guys, do us a big favor: subscribe to the channel,
smash the like button.
We'll see you on the next video.
Peace.